Okay, hi everyone. This is Seng from Netplus Asia. Welcome to our webinar. Just for those that have just joined us, I just want to bring your attention to our website, where we have hosted quite a number of webinars throughout the COVID-19 period. You can actually reach our website at www.netplus.asia. Click on the resource and events. You can actually view some of the webinar recording that we have put up. Yep. Okay, without further ado, let me just do an introduction to our participant. Today, we are glad to invite two vendors to share with us more on the fight against ransomware and how your company can actually protect against this cyber threat. Yeah. I guarantee you today will not be technical. It'll be very interesting and very educational, especially some of the statistics that will wow you. Okay, we have from Sophos, which is founded in UK in 1985, evolves to meet every challenge, protecting more than 400,000 organizations of all sizes in more than 150 countries from today's most advanced cyber threats. Powered by Sophos Labs, their cloud native and AI enhanced solution can adapt and evolve to secure endpoints and networks against newer, never seen before cyber criminal tactics and techniques. Yeah, we have with us today Kelly. Kelly Wong, who is the Senior Security Solution Engineer covering ASEAN and Korea. He will share more insight into ransomware attack with statistics that will probably you know, share more on the statistic on ransomware in the market today. Yeah, Kelly have been dealing with cybersecurity solutions for the past 17 years in various roles from solution design, implementation, and post-sales support. In his current role at Sophos, Kelly works closely with their partners to craft a security solution against cyber threats for their customer. Next, we have from Druva. Yeah, Druva coined themselves as a data protection for the cloud era. It provides simple, reliable data protection and management as a service. Started in US, Druva delivers data protection and management for the cloud era. Its platform is built on AWS natively and offer as a service, delivering global accessibility, infinitely scalable and completely autonomous enterprise data resiliency. Yeah, customer drive down costs by up to 50% by freeing themselves from the burden of unnecessary hardware, capacity planning, and software management. So the platform itself, the patented cloud architecture, transform backup data into an asset, making it more open and accessible. So customer can streamline governance, improve cyber resilience, and gain critical insight into to uncover opportunity and expedite decision making. Yeah, we have today SJ, who is the regional accounts executive from Druva, who will share more on cloud backup to further protect against ransomware. SJ represents Druva in the ASEAN region. He's a certified AWS cloud practitioner as well as ITBCP certified. He has close to a decade of experience in backup, disaster, and recovery industry. Yeah. Okay. The good thing about today's webinar is that we are giving a lucky draw, electronic Voyager UC 5200 at the end of the webinar. I will share the QR code for you to participate in the lucky draw at the end of it during our Q&A. Yep. So without further delay, Kelly, off you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. So give me a minute to share my screen.
Okay,
Sorry,
Kelly,
you guys see
can
the
see your
correct screen
screen?
now?
Yes, we can see your
Okay,
screen now.
sure. Sorry, just give me a minute. Sorry, I can't see my own screen. give me a minute. Yeah. Sorry, things just happened. Right, usually when the moment we decide to click start this webinar, right, things start working. So sorry about that. So right, today we are covering the state of ransomware in 2020. Right, we have been hearing stories about organizations crippled by ransomware in the past couple of years, right? And this is a pretty common news. I think the latest one being Garmin, whereby they had a 3-day stoppages of all their services, right? Garmin as in the GPS company. So a lot of users actually use their data, their information to track their daily health activities, right? And we hear about people paying ransom, 6 figures or 7 figures ransom. But all this news actually tells you the real story, right? These are very public stories. You hear about hospitals not being able to operate, public sectors, services disrupted, right? So to make some sense of all this news and articles or these kind of events that are happening, Sophos actually commissioned an independent survey this year in 2020 to make sense of all these findings, right? So this survey has covered 5,000 different IT managers across 26 countries, right? And this findings provides insight on what actually happens on the ground itself, right? So this is an independent survey. These are not Sophos customers. This is done by an independent third-party company called Benson Bond. So you can see for the figures, right, it's over 5,000 respondents over 26 countries. We asked them very sensitive questions to things like, were you hit by a cyber attack? How much does it cost? And how much does it take to remediate your attack? Oops. Okay. So these respondents are, we also make sure that the company size itself is represent a fair demographic, right? 50% of them will be actually from I will probably say 100 to 1,000 users, and when the other one will be the other 50% will be from 1,000 to 1,001 to 5,000 employees, right? So this is just to get a fair representative of the market, right? And the respondents itself will actually comes from different sectors, all the way from IT technology to business, media, oil and gas, and so on. And this is the breakdown of the correspondence that we actually use. Okay. So let's first start off by the level of ransomware attacks in the last year. Okay, so we actually did this survey regularly and once in every few years. So back in 2017, when we did this survey, right, we found that 54% of organizations have been hit by ransomware. Whereas back in last year this year itself is actually 51%. So organizations did report a slight drop in ransomware attack to previous year, but when we look at it itself, right, it's due to the fact that back in 2017, right, the types of ransomware attacks more likely to be the spray and pray type of techniques, whereby the attackers will actually spray out phishing attacks, emails and such, right, rather than targeted attacks, which is what we see now. Right. So in 2020, right, the trend has moved on to server-based attack. So instead of being indiscriminately spraying attacks and hope that they'll actually encounter something, now it's more targeted attacks whereby they make sure when they're in a system, they are actually accurately target out what is of high value assets before doing the encryption, and they aim to cripple the organization itself, right? So for the subsequent survey questions, right, we did ask, right, if let's say if you have encountered multiple ransomware attacks in the last year, we asked them to select to respond based on the most serious attack in the last year only. Right, that's the basis for this survey. So there is a very small difference in the attack rates based on the organization size, right? Usually it's normally trend when you have more employees, or you have a bigger company, that's why you have more value and more assets. But of course, that also differs from country to country. and it's slightly different for that. Sorry about the noise. I think suddenly renovation just started above me for no reason. Okay, so we see that the attack levels varies across the globe, right? You can see from the different countries itself, they have different levels of attack. So it shows you very interesting variation, right? This is actually most likely due to criminals focusing on their activities based on the greatest opportunity for returns, right? They also want to get the best ROI, right? It's like a business now. So also differing countries have different level of ransomware defense, right? You can see on the India itself, right? There's the highest level of organization reported being hit by ransomware in the last year. So this is not a surprise, not very surprising, because cyber hygiene is generally poor, as well as there's a high level of private software being used in business itself, right? So this will actually create a weakness in the cyber defense and makes the organization harder to more vulnerable to attack, right? So if you're using private software, you can't patch, and if you can't patch, you can't fix a vulnerability. So most likely you will be actually hit by ransomware itself. Okay. So you can see actually Singapore is actually listed under 40% that is being hit by ransomware last year. Oh, sorry, this year. Okay. Okay, so this is actually the more surprising slide, right? You read that correctly, right? Public sector is actually the least affected respondent hit by ransomware in the last year. Okay, so at the first glance, right, this is very surprising. This is a very surprising news. We see in the newspapers that it's full of stories about hospitals and government organization, right, being held to ransom, right? However, the survey itself actually reveals that those headlines are actually created a very different picture from reality. In most countries itself, right, public sector organizations have a duty to report to actually to they're actually obliged to report ransomware attacks, right, due to audit, due to transparency. Whereas in the private sector, right, there are more often there are no requirements for them to disclose their attacks unless it becomes a very big news where their services was affected, right? For example, I think one of the largest chip maker in Taiwan, right, it was affected. They had to stop operation for 3 days, and within 3 days itself, because of the fact that they stopped their operations, they were unable to meet their delivery, and they had to pay. They were subjected to fines and such. So at that point, they had no choice but to disclose that there was a ransomware attack, right? So these figures itself is actually backed by our Sophos own research into Sourcempl ransomware. Okay, so I'm just waiting for the airplane to pass. So working with a cryptocurrency monitoring organization, Neutrino, we follow the money trail, right, and identify many ransom payments, right, and victims that were previously unknown, right. So a lot of organizations do not disclose that they are actually hit by ransomware, which makes sense, right, because even for this survey itself, right, the respondents are anonymous, so they are when they provide the figures itself, they actually do not disclose who they are. Okay, so with all these largest numbers and figures, right, it will seem that the private sector actually borne the larger amount of attacks rather than the public sector. Okay, so let's take a look now at what is the impact of the ransomware itself, right? We know that these organizations fall prey to it. There's a huge number of it, right? And now we see what is the impact of it. Okay, so 73% actually succeeds in encrypting data. So the victim itself actually 73% of them fall prey to ransomware. Only 24% stop before the data to be encrypted, right? And 3% is not encrypted, but the victim is held to ransom. This is the interesting portion. Okay, so traditionally, right, there are 3 stages or 3 elements to a main successful ransomware attack, right? The first stage will be, of course, data encryption. Second will be the ability to get the payment, and then the third is the ability to show that the attacker can actually decrypt the data, right? This is essential because if you do not provide, if a hacker does encryption ransomware on your files itself, it doesn't give you the sample and decryption. People will just realize that no, you're just trying to take that for right. The attacker is just trying to scam the money out of it, right? It's attack plus a financial scam. Okay, so it's encouraging that just under a quarter of the case itself, the attack was stopped before the files were encrypted, right? And the other interesting point was that this is more like extortion, right? 3% of data was not encrypted, but the victim was they're still trying to get ransom from the victim. Okay, so this is a different way. It's still a cyber attack, or we could call it cyber extortion. They're just saying that if you do not pay up, we will encrypt your data. Okay, this is another interesting factor to note. Okay, and the next, all these correspondents that say that they have fall prey to ransomware attack, right? We look at which organization itself or from which country itself they are most susceptible to attack, right? And we ask them how many percentage of your, or rather we ask them how do you manage to block the attack, okay? So Japan fares the worst, right? With only 5% of the respondents say that they managed to stop the attack. 1% actually said that their data was not encrypted, and the other 1% simply do not know whether they have been encrypted or their files are encrypted or not. Right? It is possible, right? When you're under attack, sometimes you think that okay, my business operation is not affected, and then maybe my files are not encrypted, right? Because I'm not using them for their in archive. Okay, so that's what happened in Japan, and all of these victims itself, right? We do ask them where are your data, where is your data located? How did it affect you when you when you got infected? Okay, so most of them will say that 41% said on-premise data, right, and private cloud data was affected. 35% actually said that it's actually data in the public cloud, and 24% will say that data in the public cloud and on-premises was both affected. Right, that means they use both public cloud, on-premise, and private cloud. Okay, so this also means that the location where you keep the data also plays an effect in how your data is being encrypted or being attacked. Okay, so obviously, well, we'll show in the next few slides, right? What are the steps taken to prevent this? Okay, so you can see, 59%, right? They have data in the public cloud or a hybrid version of data in the on-premise and public cloud. Of course, this survey, a word of caution is that it is very likely that the respondents itself took a broad interpretation of the questions of the public cloud, cloud-based services, and private cloud. All right. It doesn't mean that they are using, for example, AWS or Azure. It could mean that they are using their ISP cloud center, right? And they could be using cloud backup storage rather than focusing just on the infrastructure, right? For example, if let's say they do store data in the cloud and those data is affected, like backups, and then they say, oh, this is just part of a cloud usage. Okay. Next, okay. So out of the figures we saw, 73% actually got affected, right? And 26% of organization actually paid the ransom. Okay. So they got it back by paying the ransom, and that's 1 in 4 of the victims. Okay, so this means that ransomware itself is a very big business, right? 25% of your closure rate is actually considered very high. Right, then the percentage of a respondent that answered yes, we paid the ransom. We then break it down by countries, right? Who actually paid the ransom. And this question is only seen by respondents who had a ransomware attack and data was encrypted and they paid the ransom. Okay, so when it comes to paying the ransom, right, we notice that there's a very broad regional variation, right? So in India, right, they are most likely to pay the ransom. Okay, 66% will actually pay the ransom to get the data back, while 29% actually use backup, right? Whereas on the other end of the scale, right, Spain only 4% paid for the ransom, while 72% restore their data from backups, right? So backup is very important. Right, it is so far one of the least expensive ways to recover from a ransomware attack. Okay, so we have removed some countries like Philippines, South Africa, and Turkey, Poland from this chart itself because they have a basis of less than 30 or fewer respondents for this question, right? So the reason we speculate the reason why they are not really paying on this is because they either do not pay for the ransom itself, or it's because they are infrastructure, or they do not have the ability to pay, which is why there's very little respondent in the area of paying for ransom. Okay, right. Almost everybody gets their data back after paying, right? So 73% of the attack, right, the data was encrypted. We have shown that in the slide earlier. 94% of victims get their data back right after paying for the ransom. We know that 26% actually paid the ransom to get data back. However, more often than that, 56% restored their backups and get their data back, whereas the remaining 12% actually said that they got their data back through other means, right? They didn't do backup, but they managed to do some other form of recovery. So the clear takeaway here is that backup works. Right? We strongly recommend that you should prioritize in getting regular backups that are stored offsite or in the cloud or offline. Right? It could be in cloud, but they shouldn't mix. Right? I believe the later part of this presentation, the Druva will explain more on this portion. Okay, so we talk about the impact of ransomware. Right? Now we look into what's the actual cost to the company, right? What's the appropriate cost to rectify the impacts of ransomware? We're not talking about just making payments for the ransom. We're talking about the remediation, the downtime, the man hours spent, the cost to rectify it, to change everything, as well as the lost opportunity, right? So in the case I mentioned earlier, a chip maker has his production line went down. They are not able to meet their delivery, so they have to pay late delivery costs, and they lost business sales, as well as affecting their future business because of their reputation. Okay. And this is another interesting portion. So ransomware cost varies by country, right? You'll find that this is pretty similar to software cost that's varying by country. Okay, so if you buy a Microsoft license in Australia, well, it's probably cost more than what you pay in Singapore. Okay, so we look at the average cost to remediate a ransomware attack, right? The most starting finding is that Sweden and Japan actually cost more, actually require more amount of, it actually costs more for them in those countries to fix the ransomware attack. Okay, so one reason of this is probably the labor cost, right? In different countries, they have higher labor costs, and Sweden and Japan has typically higher salaries. Okay, so the human hours required to fix all this itself is actually cost more. Whereby, well, places like South Africa, Czech Republic, and Poland have a typical lower labor cost itself. So we have already seen that Sweden itself has the second highest rate of ransomware payment of all the countries surveyed, right? Second only to India. However, unlike India, right, it has the highest cost of remediation. Okay. So in the earlier slides, we showed that India itself actually 66% was actually affected, but it actually costs more in Sweden to get things fixed. Okay. So one of the most interesting findings from the survey is that paying ransomware almost double the overall remediation costs, right? So for those who actually paid for the ransom, and after that they recover their data and they fix their entire infrastructure, right? The cost of that will actually be double of those who did not pay for the ransom. Okay, so by relying on backups or relying on resecuring their network, doing backups, doing reconfiguring and refixing their infrastructure itself, it actually costs lesser. Okay. And this is the country-specific respondents for Singapore. Okay, so 40% actually reported that they were hit by ransomware last year, and only 33% stopped the attack before the data could be encrypted. Okay, and out of this, right, very high 28% actually paid for ransom. Okay, so average remediation cost is 1.1 million. That's in Singapore. Of course, this take into consideration the loss of total earnings, right? Then in sorry. Okay, and out of these respondents that we surveyed, right, 74% have cybersecurity insurance. However, only 56% have cybersecurity insurance that specifically covers ransomware. Okay. So next we'll be talking a bit about the role of insurance in cybersecurity, right? So we did a survey and we did ask the same correspondents, right? How does the organization have cybersecurity insurance if it's hit by ransomware? right? So 84% says that yes, we have a cybersecurity insurance, and only 64 says that we cover ransomware as well, right? So given that 51% of organizations experienced ransomware last year, and with the average remediation cost of 761,000 USD for remediation, right? So organizations should actually question the value of insurance in your company. In that, what's the value of having cybersecurity insurance if it doesn't cover ransomware, right? So, cost of recovering is so much more than other kind of cybersecurity attacks. So this survey is actually the sum of those who responded to the question, whether do they have cybersecurity insurance, and do they have cybersecurity insurance that cover ransomware, and those that 20% who do not know whether their cybersecurity insurance covers ransomware or not. Okay, so this is actually very patchy cybersecurity insurance. Right, so as we have seen it in the earlier charts itself, 84% of organizations have cybersecurity insurance, only 64% doesn't have ransomware insurance. So this data actually looks at the country by country data point for cybersecurity insurance, right? So India itself actually tops the list of organizations with cybersecurity insurance with 94%, and highest level with 80% of cybersecurity insurance, right? And Turkey itself, right, has the lowest number, reported the third rated, not lowest, the third number of cybersecurity insurance, but they have the biggest gaps because they only have 57% insurance that cover ransomware. So what do you derive based on the information that we have just shown to you, right? So you noticed earlier, right, India itself actually shows that 66% of organizations was actually attacked by ransomware. Okay, so this is just some numbers that we have gathered, and this shows that the value of having cybersecurity insurance, right? So having cybersecurity insurance, you need to look for the correct one. You need to ensure that it covers ransomware, so that if in the case of any outbreaks itself or any attacks, you'll be well covered. Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of questions coming in the Q&A. I will try to answer them later in the Q&A section, right? Okay, so although the public sector, right, dominated the ransomware headlines, they are also the most exposed to the full brunt of a ransomware attack. Okay, on the average, right, 64% of organizations have insurance that cover ransomware. Right, financial industries services, they have the highest percentage of coverage. They are the one that buys the most amount of cybersecurity insurance. Whereas in the public sector organization, right, they lag behind the private sector counterparts. Most organizations do not pay for cybersecurity insurance, including for ransomware costs. Only 51% of it does that, right? Which is a full 10% behind the private sector. Right, this low rate of protection could be due to cost, right? Whenever most people plan for their cybersecurity solutions, they do not take for cybersecurity insurance into consideration, right? To the private sector, right? If let's say I'm getting a solution, cybersecurity insurance, cybersecurity solution for my organization, right? It should cover everything, but they do not plan on being attacked. Okay, the mindset is that, well, I have all this security solution, I have to be safe. Okay. So after looking at all the numbers itself, right, the first thing you'll be asking, right, is cybersecurity insurance feeling ransomware attack? Okay. So if we have seen, right, 73% of ransomware attacks results in data being attacked, and of all those organizations that have data was encrypted, 26% said they pay the ransom to get the data back. However, as we dive deeper itself, right, we discovered that almost all the incidents itself, when the ransom is paid, right, is 94% there's a cybersecurity insurance that's paying the ransom. So this actually leads to the question: is cybersecurity insurance actually feeling the ransomware industry, right? As virtually all ransom payments are made by insurance company rather than the victim organizations. So as we have seen, right, paying the ransom doubles up the overall cleanup cost. Okay, so after moving away from the impact of the ransomware, right, we dive a bit into how the ransomware actually gets into the organization. Okay, so this is based on the results of the survey as well. How did the ransomware actually get your organization? So most of it, right, is through a file download or an email with malicious link, right? And then second was a remote attack on servers, right? Then third, we email with malicious attachment. So what really stands out when we look at this data is that there's no single main attack vector, right? You see all the percentage of the attacks is 20+% and so on. There's no like a 50% attack vector, right? So this shows that the attacker actually use a wide range of techniques, and whichever defense has weakness on how they get into the organization. When one technique fails, right, they will just move on to the next until actually they find a weak spot. Okay, so this data demonstrates that there's a need for effective layered defense. Cybersecurity should be a system, a layered defense, rather than just point defenses, right? And you should actually cover your endpoint, server, public cloud infrastructure, email, network gateway, and supply chain. It's not just one point in your organization. It has to cover the entire surface vector that can be attacked. Okay, just focusing on a single type of technology to prevent cyber attacks is a recipe for infection. So the next, probably what you'll be thinking of is, right, what can I do, right? So you've seen all the stats that's happening in the real world within the last year. So what can be done, right? Ransomware will always remain as a real risk. You have to assume that you will be hit, right? And plan for how to defend against it and how to have a very quick follow-up action, right? 1 in 4 victims stop the attack. Invest in an anti-ransomware, a very effective anti-ransomware protection, right? Rather than just having a defense that says that, oh, we stop exploits, and because ransomware usually use exploit to get in, we stop ransomware on the account, right? Invest in some solution that is dedicated to look just into ransomware alone, right? Data in the public cloud is at risk, right? Protect data wherever it's located. So do not assume that, oh, I'm hosted on a public cloud, AWS, and it's actually protected by AWS. That's actually a very mistaken assumption that most people have. Okay, what cloud itself, what the cloud providers will normally say that we provide a shared responsibility towards security in the public cloud. Right? When we say shared security, it means that they are responsible for what the security of the cloud itself, but they are not responsible for the data in the cloud. Okay, backup works, right? Keep them offline, offsite. Beware of patchy cyber insurance. Make sure that your cybersecurity insurance covers ransomware. And attackers will try again and again, so please deploy a multi-layered defense. Right. So with a bit more of about Sophos. Sophos has a product called Sophos Intercept X with EDR. And this Intercept X EDR will be able to cover the entire attack chain of the desktop component of the attack, right? So earlier I did mention, right, no single solution can actually cover the entire attack chain. That is still true, right? It's not that I'm saying that our Sophos Intercept X can cover everything, but Sophos Intercept X with EDR will be able to cover whatever attacks that occur on your workstation or on your server itself. When we talk about having different layers of security, we have other solutions like our firewall itself. It works with synchronized security with the endpoint for automated incident response. And we also have our cloud security posture software called Cloud Optics that just monitors and manage your security posture in those public infrastructure as a service provider. Okay. And on top of that, right, we have a Sophos MTL or Managed Threat Response. So Sophos MTL team is a service that actually provides 24/7 threat hunting delivered by the expert team as a fully managed service. Okay. So when we say MTL team, right, so I mentioned earlier we have products like Intercept X with EDR or XG Firewall. Those are products. So to effectively use those products itself, right, you can rely on your system administrator, or you can rely on a SOC, right, or you can rely on a service provider, and they can provide things like threat hunting. And there are different types of threat hunting. We classify as automated threat hunting, lead-driven, or leadless threat hunting, right? So for automated threat hunting, it means that if you have some indicators of compromise or you have been attacked itself, we'll hunt for the threats based on the symptoms displayed by the attack. right? And with that, we look at the lead-driven threat hunting. From the list of automated attack, we will investigate the weak signals of malware attacks. And further on, we have what we call leadless threat hunting, whereby if you do sign up service with us, with us and Netplus itself, we actually do a survey. We will look at your company infrastructure, your company profile, who are the VIPs in your company, and from there itself, we will build up a probable attack vector for this kind of attacks to your company itself. Okay. And with that itself, we will keep a lookout for those threats, and we will neutralize it before it actually reaches you. And we have different type of response methods as well, right? We can, if let's say you do get a MTL service, we can respond by full neutralization. That means you trust us, right? You give us the rights to work on your behalf. So once we find that there's a threat or there's an attack in your environment, we will neutralize it and then we'll inform you. The other point is, if let's say you think that your organization has sensitive information that you do not want to allow any destruction of or removal of files itself, you can actually collaborate and work with your SOC team, right, to respond to the detection of a event or incident, right? So first with Netplus itself, right, will provide you a 24/7 SOC component that will manage and look after your entire network, right? And I'll leave the Netplus component to Netplus itself to speak for it. But they are a managed service partner which will be able to provide the services as well as to work with us for the MTL detection and to prevent ransomware. Okay, so I've seen that there are questions in the list so far, so I'll answer some of them. Right, so if you have any questions regarding my presentation, please feel free to type in the question bar, right, and I'll answer them now.
Kelly, sorry, I think let's leave the questions and answer to the end of the event.
Oh, okay, sure. Oh, sorry, yeah, my mistake. Okay, so next, we'll move on to the next presenter, and we'll answer the questions at the end of the event.
Hey, thanks, Kelly, for interesting statistic on ransomware nowadays. Now I shall hand over, like what Kelly has mentioned. Protecting your data is important, just not from the endpoint perspective, but also from backing up your data. I shall have SJ from Druva to share more on a Druva solution in terms of cloud backup. SJ.
Hey, thanks. Thank you. Kelly, are you still sharing your screen? I cannot click onto the screen sharing option. They say waiting to view Kelly Wong's screen.
Oh, I clicked stop already. Sorry. Let's see.
Okay. It's Ruben. Ruben has to control that. Yep.
Okay.
So Ruben, I also still can't. They say now waiting to view Ruben's screen. Sorry, just guys, apologize. Just give us a bit of time.
While waiting for that, I saw there's a question, Kelly. Based on the statistic of Singapore, what is the base number we are talking about? Because I know that you have shared the percentage, right? But how many in terms of the number of surveys were being submitted?
Okay, that's actually in another slide itself. Let me get the numbers. I will answer in a short while. Yeah, it's from different information source. It's not my slides directly. Sorry.
Okay, sure.
Oh, I wanted to say 200. I thought I saw the 5,000 breakdown was 200 people in Singapore.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. So do I get a prize? I was paying attention.
Unfortunately, you don't qualify for for it.
Okay. But I was really paying attention. It was interesting. Yeah. So I can already.
Okay, there's some technical glitch. I think now you can see the slide from SJ. SJ, you're good to go.
Okay, I just want to check. So able to see my PowerPoint slide now? I just put it onto a slideshow. And yeah, I also just want to make sure it's the slideshow, right? It's not presenters mode.
Yep, it's the slideshow. Thanks.
Okay. All right, cool. So hey guys, thanks so much everyone for taking time out. So just to reintroduce myself, you can call me SJ. I'm primarily taking care of the ASEAN region also on behalf of Druva. Okay. So just to give you a little bit of an introduction, brief history about Druva. So Druva, we are still a very young company. I actually still consider a startup. We are about 11 years old this year. But just in the last 11 years, right now, we serve more than 4,000 customers around the world. Our entire backup solution, right? It's actually 100% cloud native. We are built natively inside of AWS, and actually with AWS, we are already their top 5 biggest storage partner lah. We already manage more than 200 petabytes worth of data inside of AWS, and this is after we have dedupe and compress. If you look at the customer base below, right, you do get to see these are just more of the global customer references lah. And since today we are on security, so just fun fact, McAfee is a customer of ours. Actually, Trend Micro is also a customer of ours. I'm just going to double check to see if Sophos is actually also using Druva, for backup. And also just to give further credibility on our security, in 2018, in Druva, we were invested by one of the Singapore government entity, EDBI, and then actually in the same year, IMDA gave us a accreditation. We are the only backup solution with this accreditation actually, and this actually promotes and encourage Singapore government agencies to actually use Druva for backup. So you already see some of the customers that we have. And then in the United States, right, our relationship with the government agencies is even longer. So you get to see organizations like NASA and the US Air Force. They have been customer for a very long period of time already. I have a further breakdown here of just quickly our customer base here in Singapore primarily. So in Singapore, we are already here for about 8 to 9 years, so pretty good track record. Now, I'm just going to touch a little bit on, I call it what's wrong with backup, but more like this is how everyone is doing it, but there's gaps and in how we can improve basically. So the first one is, this is kind of like the best practice, the industry standard, I would say, for backup today when I talk to most enterprise companies. So what they do is all the key servers that they have, they're going to do what they call this-to-this replication. So they will buy a backup software, they'll buy hardware, they will just install them together. And then if you need offsite copy, right, the offsite could be a copy in the cloud, or the offsite copy could be an on-prem copy somewhere else. It could be a server in another location or co-located. Okay. And then for long-term archiving purposes, right, you then they will actually then use tape, and then some companies will even engage a third party to do what we call offsite logistic. Now, not only is there a lot of time and money spent in managing such a architecture or infrastructure, we all know that in terms of hardware, there is the definitive lifespan, right? So every 3 to 5 years, you're going to have to do a tech refresh, which could be painful. And then if your server, if the backup server, let's say storage is at its capacity limit, it's also another headache to have, right? As if that's not enough, right? What we have seen today is, we were talking about, today's topic is about ransomware. So we have seen very smart, advanced ransomware that is actually targeting your backup, even before they target your production system. So I've actually blurred out the vendor here, but it's a very big brand. So this is actually in one of their forums. And in this case of this particular customer, the ransomware deleted their backup before went on to encrypt their production servers. And then as a result, they really lost everything. They couldn't recover anything, even when they asked help from the FBI. Okay. And why this happened basically is just a lot of the on-premise backup today, they are running on, most commonly, they're running on a form of Windows OS and things like that. And this basically just gives ransomware an opportunity to run and perform their attacks in your environment basically. Of course, later I'm going to talk about how Druva prevents this. The second thing I wanted to talk about is what I call data blind spots. Actually, I would say a lot of organizations that I talk to today, when I ask them how they are protecting their data, and when we talk about backup, the first thing that comes to their mind has always been server backup. But when you dig in further, like, hey, are you using things like Office 365 or G Suite now? Now with COVID, you have a lot of people working from homes. All this data that is like sitting in the user's laptop in things like Office 365, are these being protected? Are these being backed up? And really, most of the time, right, the answer is no, right? A lot of time they are just, traditionally everyone is just thinking about backing up your servers, and then they kind of neglect data that's out of the environment. But statistically speaking, I think both Gartner and IDG, they have already said, I think more, I think by year 2020, and that's in the US, maybe Singapore is a bit slower, but I'm confident to say, maybe by 2025, more than 50% of data could be already out of your company's firewall. Okay, it could be sitting in other forms of cloud or SaaS applications, right? I mean, most organizations today that I talk to are already on 365, if not already in this discussion of migrating data to 365. And exactly like what Kelly said, any cloud solution that you're going to adopt, right? It's a shared responsibility model. And in every shared responsibility model, data is always customers' responsibility. So we shouldn't have this false assumption that, oh, once I'm on 365 or G Suite, perhaps I actually don't need to care about backup my data anymore. If you really looked into Microsoft's service agreement, they really clearly say that, hey, we recommend that you regularly back up your content and data because they are not liable for any form of disruption or loss. Okay, and that in Microsoft, right? If you guys have experienced this before, Netplus have had customers who come to us and they have experienced things where user delete an email in 365, it's kept in the recycle bin for about 15 to max 30 days. After that, it's permanently purged. So by the time they found out about it, right, they tried to get it back. There's no way they could get back those data, right? And then the next thing is there are ransomware that it's happening inside of things like 365 and G Suite. Okay, I have a YouTube link here that I won't show today, but you can get it from Netplus. It's actually done by a very famous, I would say he's an ex-hacker, now turned kind of like a consultant to the government. US always has such story. So his name is Kevin Mitnick. You can Google him. Very famous, one of the most wanted hackers of all time. So in this YouTube video, it's only an 8-minute video. He actually show how hackers and attackers today are actually doing phishing mails and then in the disguise of ransomware, things like that. Okay, it's quite interesting. And then for those of you who may be using Salesforce right now, just take note, Salesforce recently just announced that they are going to stop their data recovery and backup service, right? So backup now is 100% your responsibility. So if you have any object that is accidentally being deleted from Salesforce, right? Please, don't. No point relying on Salesforce anymore. They will tell you that they are not responsible for recovering your data. So I have a few screenshots next to show you. The first screenshot that I'm going to share is actually one of the screenshots from this YouTube link, what Kevin Mitnick do. I do apologize, the resolution is not as good as I want it to be, but in this was the example he gave. This was, of course, after ransomware has attacked your Office 365, and then you can see all the emails being encrypted. And I would say the hackers are also very smart. They deliberately encrypt everything, so you see cryptic messages here. But if you really looked into the inbox, you actually will still see the title. So it's kind of like a psychological warfare. They want to let you know exactly what I have encrypted, okay, to kind of lure you to pay them. Okay, so watch the whole video. It's actually very interesting. So next up, I also have a few more screenshots on 365 attacks as well, but this now goes into OneDrive. The reason why, because is when I talk to my customers about protecting their data, right? Some people will tell me, hey, but OneDrive has this thing called versioning, right? They assume versioning is a form of backup. Okay, unfortunately, versioning is not. And this is actually a screenshot done from our internal lab testing. Feel free to do it yourself as well. So we have a test document over here that has been modified a couple of times. So these are all the versions that we have, right? We kind of simulate a ransomware attack. Okay, we actually have kind of like a sample ransomware type file. Okay, and then we encrypt the whole file. So once this test document was encrypted, once the file format, the extension was changed, okay, the versions are all gone. And then when you try, and the only version left, right, actually it's the encrypted version, right? So this is just to really let you know that you shouldn't also depend on versioning, you know, as a form of backup. They probably wouldn't help much. All right. So this is where Druva really comes in. Druva basically, as all of you know, we are a cloud-based, cloud-native backup solution that's powered by AWS. If you look onto the left right now, in terms of what we back up, what we protect from top down, right? Data center would be, you know, everything from your physical servers, VMs, NAS, databases. We also do AWS workloads today. So if you are a customer who already have AWS servers, we would help to protect them. The third one will be SaaS applications. So today we actually do 365, G Suite, Salesforce, and Slack. And then last but not least, we actually do endpoint backups. All right. So two, I would say, unique selling point. I would say, let's say, make it 3 unique selling point for Druva. Is that first, our entire thing is, you know, as a service basically. So you know, as a service, basically what it means is that even though we are in AWS, basically everything that you do, it's already covered and front by us. You actually do not need to open up another AWS account. You don't have to worry about configuring your own compute and storage, even down to the ingress and egress charges, right? Basically, those will be covered by us already. So it's already 100% front by us, all right? So that's one unique selling point. Second is, we are a zero infrastructure backup, okay? So really everything direct to cloud, okay? We actually do not need to rely on having any on-premise infrastructure for our backup to work. Okay, the third feature, the third unique selling point is actually other than backup. Today we have actually advanced a little bit beyond backup. So we do provide other value-added services to help you with your data. Okay, of course these are so-called optional payable services, but I do want to share them with you. It's very interesting. So since today we are talking about ransomware, now if you look on the right, so data protection is what we do. It's what every backup company do. So 2 more areas that we cover today, it's actually in governance and in data intelligence. So I'm just going to show you an example for the governance piece first. So for governance, what we can do is, if let's say you are from a certain industry, you do have, let's say, some form of compliance, you know, that you need to follow. Okay, basically what we do is we have already uploaded all the international industry compliance standards, okay? So that everything that's being backed up to our cloud, we will give you a reporting tool, an analytic tool for you to actually run diagnostic and analysis, okay? So in this case, you see the example here, the first one, annual declaration, that's the file name, owner of the file, John Doe, and then what they found is like US Social Security number, and this is a HIPAA violation. If you guys are from healthcare, you will know that, yeah, HIPAA is a healthcare kind of like compliance. And then we have others, right? You know, credit card number, PCI. So that's normally for financial industry. All these are highly customizable. So we can actually customize it based on the exact kind of sensitive data you guys want to track. So in the event you really, let's say, have a user that you found out is actually having a file that he or she is not supposed to own, okay, what you can do now is actually do a quarantine of the file, or it could be a false positive, or you could even just delete the file away from the user's source. So the source could be from the laptop, the source could be from, let's say, OneDrive, Google Drive. We could just delete the source away. To take one step further, in Singapore we have PDPA, you know, Europe has GDPR. So, you know, in PDPA and GDPR, there is this particular clause that's something along the lines of rights to be forgotten, right? So if let's say you have a customer who says, oh, I want my data, let's say my IC number, to be permanently removed from your, let's say, your entire company's database, you could use this, right, to do the sensitive data track. And then from there, not only can you just delete from the original source, you can actually delete from all our backup snapshots. From there, then we have an audit trail. You'll be able to use that audit trail to kind of produce like a receipt to show that basically, you know, everything has been completely deleted, right? So this is what we do to help you, you know, strengthen your compliance. The second thing is data intelligence, and this is where machine learning is being introduced. So since we talk about ransomware, right, we kind of have like this unusual behavior monitoring. So what we do is, the example here is that we are backing up the user's data for a certain period of time already. So in this case, about 100 days, 3 months, okay? So you see the blue snapshots over there. All the blue snapshots are actually your healthy snapshots, okay? Suddenly one day, okay, you actually see this red bar, okay? So that's the unusual behavior that we see. If you are able to see the description, basically you will see deleted files about 1,000, right? So that's definitely an unusual behavior. So once this happens, right, what we do in terms of unusual behavior tracking would be massive file deletion, modification, or encryption. As an admin, you will actually be alerted immediately. Okay, of course, from there you can immediately do your investigation. If it's really like a ransomware attack, at the very least you can try to act upon it, you know, as quickly as possible. And then all the other blue bars that you see earlier, right, those are all the captured healthy snapshots, so that if you want to recover your data, at the very least you know which is the last point in time whereby you actually had a healthy snapshot to recover to, right? So this is what Druva basically does, you know, for our customer. We provide backup for you, but if you need more, we can help you with governance. We can help you with intelligence. Now, I want to talk a little bit about our security. Since I talked about how on-premise backup today is being attacked by ransomware, and how a cloud solution like 365 can also be attacked by ransomware, the natural question some of our customers would have would be, since Druva is in the cloud and Druva is a backup company, would Druva be affected by ransomware? So the good news and the answer to this is no, we will not be affected. If you look at the 4-point forms that I have over here, the very first point basically addressed this. So the way we handle your data is actually unique. We do not just keep data as it is. We actually do data sharding into block levels. We then scramble these blocks, and then when we store them, right, it's actually being split up into metadata and block data. And even when we store them, it's stored in a serverless architecture. There is no OS in it, okay? And so what we are trying to say is that even if I do backup a ransomware file into our cloud, because it's already sharded and it's being stored in a serverless architecture, there is no way this ransomware file is able to execute, basically, all right? So this is our answer to how Druva's backup is ransomware proofed. The second one would be our own independent security certification. So this is something that we are proud of, because we want, AWS is fantastic. They have a lot of security in place for us, but we want to make sure independently ourselves, our technology, our product, our business operations, our services to you as a customer is also independently certified, which is why you do see an overlap in terms of our certification. The third thing is basically just protecting your data away from us and from other third party. So 100%, we have no access to your data. We have no backdoor. So nobody from Druva, nobody from AWS can access your data except you yourself. We use an envelope encryption methodology. And honestly, that's why the Singapore government and the US government gave us the accreditation, and they trust us and they use us for backup, because they know that we have no way of accessing their data. Okay, the last point over there, this one will be quite basic. So data at flight and at rest, you have your TLS 1.2 encryption, and then your AES 256-bit encryption. Now, other reasons why customers choose Druva, performance. Even though I tell you direct to cloud backup, a lot of time our customers will have bandwidth concerns and things like that. But I do challenge you to test us out and go for a POC, because I would say most of the time we exceed customers' expectation. Okay, we are very confident with our network performance as well as our deduplication and compression. Okay, bandwidth has really never been a issue for us for backups. Second is they like that we are single pane of glass, and that we basically can monitor backups from multiple types of workloads. And we also provide multiple storage regions from all around the world for them to choose from to backup. Okay, Second thing is TCO, so total cost of ownership. So as I've mentioned, we're a SaaS model. Our pricing is kind of like all inclusive, right? Whatever that we normally say, it's kind of like a net pricing. You don't need to worry about those ingress and egress. It makes everything very neat, very clean, and that's what customer likes about us. And the fact that we do direct to cloud, we are zero infrastructure, that kind of lower TCO sometimes, by up to 50%. Other value-added services would be like, DR as a service in AWS, the e-discovery and compliance features. I've already showed you the snapshots just now. And then the third thing is that, if you need long-term archiving, we also have Glacier in Amazon. We can do, auto tiering for you. So I'm kind of like, I'm going to end this off on, why you seriously need to, re-look into how you're protecting your data now. First is, like I said, your data blind spots. Protect your unprotected data. Like I said, majority of the organizations that I talk to, your work from home users in terms of laptop, your Office 365, your Salesforce, things like that, always they are not protected. Okay, they are not backed up. And like what Kelly said, you always need to assume that ransomware is going to happen. In this case, we always need to prepare for it, right? Assume it's going to happen already, or someone or just a file is going to be deleted or go missing. The question is, how do you protect it? And then the second thing is, now really, everyone is talking about digital transformation, cloud transformation, and personally, I think on-premise backup should be one of the first that looked into how you can improve it. All right. So with that, just want to say thanks a lot for everyone's time. If you're interested, we can arrange another appointment for a demo, for POC, for TCO assessment. If not, once again, I'm SJ, and really appreciate everyone's time today. Okay, thank you.
Hey, thanks, SJ. Okay, we have come to the end, and there are a lot of questions being posted. I guess you, but before that, while we are going to start our question and answer, you can see on my screen, I believe you can see my screen, yeah? The QR code. You can scan the QR code and fill up the survey. Do help us fill up the survey and feedback to us how we have done for today's seminar, as well as try to win yourself a Pentronics Voyager UC5200. Yeah. Okay. So maybe both Kelly and SJ, you can turn on your camera, and then we'll just run through some of the questions that we have. Yep. So first question on ransomware, probably. How did the victims pay the ransom to the attackers? Maybe Kelly, I don't know. Do you have insights into this?
Yes. Usually, in fact, I would say all the payments are usually made in Bitcoins, right? And the ransomware notes will usually provide instruction how to make the payment, right? So it usually involves you getting into going into the dark web, right? Purchasing Bitcoins and then transferring the Bitcoins over to the attackers. Okay.
Okay. Yep. Let's move on to the same in terms of ransomware. Yeah. There's a very general question. What are the symptoms to watch out for? Apparently, we have this a customer that says that he noticed her screen, the mouse will move from opening one file to another without her controlling the device and server. Is it attacked by ransomware?
Okay.
I don't know, Kelly.
I would say you have more serious problem than just ransomware. Okay, so it is not a specific ransomware symptom, right? So usually for ransomware, right, they will try to remain hidden until the point where they are expected to attack your system. And controlling your mouse on the screen itself usually is not one of the, or rather not one that the hacker will want to do, because it will alert the user. Right? Normally they have another separate remote session that they can log in, and then you will not be able to see what the hacker is doing. If you can see what the hacker doing, it usually means that he's not very good, or the malware is already running. Okay. So as for ransomware itself, right, there is no real it's not really possible as on a human level to see the files being encrypted and to stop it manually. Okay, by the time you notice that there's something wrong itself, it means your files already have been encrypted. It occurs at a very fast process, right? A couple of 100 files per minute, that kind of speed.
Yes, and that's why all your end devices needs to be protected. Your data needs to be stored probably offsite, and that's where you should prevent
you should have
ransomware from and I guess Kelly, you have mentioned also cyber insurance, right? That's the other part whereby companies are it's still pretty new in the market, I guess, and companies are not aware, and that's probably one of the areas that companies can look into to further enhance their protection against ransomware. Yeah,
correct. So,
okay. Move on to let's do one question for SJ. SJ, we have users that ask about litigation hold of Microsoft. Not talking about the backup, but more of Microsoft doesn't guarantee the recovery of emails, right? Put on hold. So
anyway, for this, Microsoft. So first of all, there is this thing called preservation hold. You're right. But preservation hold, I guess first is not applicable for all 365 licenses. I think normally this is for the E series. So, but even if you have those, right? I'm not sure if you're aware. Anyway, I'm really more than happy to have a deep dive with you. I've all the screenshots. I've all the reports on my end. But to make it simple, first is that the litigation hold, if you were to use it, normally, as it says, litigation hold is normally when you suspect a certain user or department has anything, you want to put it on a litigation hold for a temporary purpose for retention, so that when it comes to investigation, you use it. I'm not sure if you're aware, once you put things on litigation hold, on the active emails or the active SharePoint or OneDrive, the users cannot delete anything, you know. If you think about this on a production point of view, I had customers who tell me, oh, I will just put everything into litigation hold forever. That means no email, nothing can ever be deleted. You know, that's going to cause a huge production headache. Imagine your users can never delete their stuff, even though it's really like truly unwanted, number one. Number two is, I don't know if you know, actually Microsoft has a storage limit. So the more and the longer you put for litigation hold, it exceeds, and after that, the charge back to you is actually quite significant. So my short answer to it is that it's going to be a production headache if you use litigation hold as a permanent backup. And it's not a real backup, it's not point in time anyway. And then second thing, it's a cost thing.
There's one question, interesting question on this, where infected file, if it's being backed up by Druva, can they ensure that the backups are clean? You know? So let's say a ransomware has attacked, right? The files has been encrypted. You will still back it up, right?
I will, yes. So you are absolutely right. We are not a antivirus or a security company. We will not remove or remediate that ransomware. We back it up, right? Because in your policy, if you're backing up everything, we will back up that file. What we are assuring is that unlike other on-premise backup that we have seen, when they back up the infected file, the ransomware starts to infect all their backup. What we are assuring is that at least all your other backup, the previous healthy snapshots, they will all be safe and intact. They will not be affected.
I would like to add that. I'd like to add that even suppose Intercept X itself on that machine itself, ransomware will not be able to run, because we have a dedicated component that just looks out for encryption process. So if any encryption and any process that start to encrypt files itself, will actually analyze it and block it, right? Unless of course it's a legitimate software.
Yep. Thanks, Kelly. Yep. Okay. Continue on Kelly. There's a question on how there's a customer that is trying to find out how governments what do they do to actually stop attackers?
Okay, that is actually a very broad question, right? So I did mention about cybersecurity as a system, right? Having multiple layers of defense. So when you say government, to be specific, what Singapore government has been doing to stop attackers, I think we saw in the news itself, they are doing a lot of network segregation. They have split their network into public facing, intranet facing, and totally offline, right? In fact, most of our critical systems in Singapore are totally offline, right? So that's one of the methods, right, to take out the internet, take out the remote access, right, so that there's no surface factor for the attackers to even try to attack. Right, so that's just one layer of defense. I could go more in depth into that. If you want to, we can arrange for a separate session. We can explain to you the cyber kill chain from all the way from reconnaissance to penetration to all the way to installation and payloads, right? So it's a very entire cyber kill chain that we will protect it at the different layers with different products.
Okay, continue on this. There's also another customer that asks, what is the first thing to do if you discover a system being hacked?
What is the first thing to do?
Yeah, I think nothing
Okay.
much you can do.
My first advice is if you can, take it offline.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that should be the first step. Take it offline, then start to do recovery, start to do anti-malware scanning, right? If you have any vendor that actually does remediation services, you can engage them, right? But the first step is always to take it offline, shut it down, take it offline, yeah.
And that's where the synchronized security in Sophos, which will help bring the endpoint offline automatically. That's the power of this Sophos product, right?
Yes. So because human reaction is always slower than having an automated response. So for synchronized security, right, if you have a firewall and an endpoint to working in tandem, the moment your endpoint is under attack itself, right, the firewall will notice that okay, the endpoint itself, maybe the attacker has removed the endpoint protection, or he has it has targeted endpoint protection. So you declare that this machine itself has been infected, and you enforce isolation on the machine so that it cannot communicate to the internet as well as to other workstations in the same network segment, right? So you actually tell the rest of the machine in the network that this is an infected machine, do not communicate with it, right? This is automated. Okay, so
okay, thanks.
that's one of the
There's a
ways,
clarification on the government one. Actually, his question is why government do not identify the attackers and stop this problem?
Oh, that is a very wide range of questions. First,
yeah, also a very general question.
Yeah, very general question. A hacker is usually well hidden, right? For them to attack itself without the fear of implications, right? They will probably jump through many hops. To answer that question itself, they do actually stop and arrest hackers whenever they can find them. As in the news recently, I think the latest one was by the US government. They have identified that 5 different Chinese hackers were involved in an attack, and they have listed their photographs and they have put out warrant for their arrest. Okay.
Yep.
So yes, government do stop that. It's illegal. Yep.
Okay, moving to SJ, there's this question on your backup, on the Druva backup, in the sense that the defense is only as strong as the weakest link, which could be the customer. If a customer is compromised, how to manage the risk of a compromised customer?
This one actually it will be similar to how I answered it just now. Yeah, because we don't do the remediation. Yeah, so we just make sure that the ransomware doesn't spread in our.
Okay. Yep. So the other thing is, how does Druva scan for infected file? Okay, I think this is ensure the backups are clean. Yeah, this has been answered earlier. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we have our own. We do have our. I mean, on a security level, we do have antivirus as well. We do our own security checks and things like that. But it's not really part of our SLA to scan on behalf of the customer and remove it lah. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I have one question on cyber security. So I'm not sure, Kelly, you know about this. How costly is the cyber security insurance, and who are the insurance company that offer such product? Yeah.
I think this will be answered by Netplus,
so
right?
probably you're the endpoint. I would say that there are quite a number of those big insurance company that currently offer. In fact, Netplus is also going into this cyber insurance so-called area. Yeah. But there's akan datang lah. We probably will be launching this service sometime in the last quarter of this year, hopefully. Preparation is still underway. So if you are interested in subscribing to cyber insurance, do speak to Netplus, your account manager, and we are happy to share more with you. Yeah, on that aspect. Okay, maybe we take one last question, then probably we can close this off. The rest we will try and answer, yeah, directly to the customer itself. Okay, this looks interesting. The low hanging fruits that what are the low hanging fruits that SME can first achieve in order to prevent ransomware attack? So maybe comes from both aspects, right? Kelly, you may want to take this up first, then yeah.
Yeah, of course. Right, by having a very up to date endpoint solution, a next gen endpoint solution that actually looks at ransomware, that actually targets to prevent ransomware from running on a machine, like our Sourcempl Intercept X with EDL. That's a start, right? And of course, limiting the avenues or the surface vectors that attacker can come into your network. Right, that will be achieved by using a firewall. And now in the COVID situation, you need to ensure that the machines that are used to access your corporate resources are well protected, right? So having so for synchronized security, will also achieve that because we are able to check on the security posture of every workstation as they VPN into the network. So if let's say the workstation has been compromised, right, they will not be able to access your network. Then of course the second part will be covered by backups, right? I'll leave that to SJ.
Yep. So actually, for me would be in one of my slides would be protect your data blind spots, right? And I describe what your data blind spots are. Most organizations that I talk to have some form of backup for their servers, but really when it comes to your user laptop, if you're using things like 365 and things like that, regularly I find that they are not. And a lot of ransomware attacks starts from like simple phishing emails to your users first. So there's never 100% prevention, right? So if just touch wood, if the prevention fails and the attack does happen, then you need to depend on the remediation strategy, and backup is the, I would say, the one of the best way. The second way would be like what Kelly said, you can pay, but normally that the payment is not worth your while. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you very much. I guess I can close this by informing everyone that Netplus, we are able to provide both Sophos endpoint protection, your firewall, as well as we have a cloud firewall, newly launched solution, eSentinel. If you want to know more, do visit our website under the events. We did a webinar sometime earlier this month. Yeah, and also we are also a close partner of Druva to provide endpoint backup. Yep. So thanks everyone for joining. I'm not sure whether Ruben, are you ready to do the lucky draw?
Give me 2 more minutes.
Okay, sure. Let's do one last question. I guess there's one question on how Druva actually charges for the licenses and things like that. Yep. Maybe actually you want to share a bit more on this?
For us, Druva, it's very simple. If you are looking on to, so we basically look at workloads basically based on 3 kinds lah. Okay, one is user workload. When I say user, it can be laptop, it can be 365, it can be G Suite, it can be Salesforce. As long as it's user, we just look at the total number of user. It's a user license. Simple, straightforward. The second one would be server, on-premise server workloads. The one we don't care number of servers. We also don't care if your servers are all across the world. Purely based on capacity after we have compressed and deduped it. And then the last one is we do help to manage and back up AWS workloads today as well. That one is based on just the number of AWS servers and workloads that you have. So yeah, that's it. Very simple. Yep.
Yep. Thanks, SJ. I think for pricing, do reach out to your Netplus account manager. We will definitely be able to work out a pricing for your Druva backup.